Finally, Clemson Sports Talk has come back to Drive Time. Hello, everybody. Lawton Swan back in the saddle. Once again, it is the show that shakes the Southland. Clemson Sports Talk for you each and every afternoon as you make your way around the great state of South Carolina and beyond, listening to us on incredible radio stations like Fox Sports Radio 1400, the Midlands, heard around the world. The iHeartRadio application. Download today. It is free. Thank you for being a part of the program. Thank you for joining us, hanging out live, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Again, hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, do all those things so that you can be a part of the program when we do go live here. And I know some of you are saying, Swan, you haven't been live here in a while. And I know, man, the schedule is compact. That's the best way to put it. I mean, it is a compact schedule. And so when I can work our way in, which typically will be like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and maybe some Fridays, we're going to do it, but I can't promise you every day because of everything we've got going on. Now, if you go over to our website and subscribe, right, ClemsonSportsTalk.com, if you and several other thousands of people go over and subscribe, then you know what? Maybe I won't have to do the day job. Then I can just do this thing for a living. But instead, still the living has to come first. So you're going to get over here on the YouTube stream and on Facebook and Twitter occasionally. That's going to be like a bad record. There are going to be some skips. But that's all right. We got to do what we got to do. 803-450-0086. What you don't miss, though, if you are a loyal podcast listener, is the podcast edition because it comes out. The podcast comes out all the time. And so I absolutely do my very best to get that podcast edition out to you every day. As a matter of fact, we've got our radio rewind on our website, which I know a lot of people like. Woo! That's right. Oh, I hear you. And so, again, it is a lot of fun hanging out, talking a little college football with you. You know, I posed a question on social media earlier today, and I'll throw it out to you. But do you prefer, and again, it's one of the great things about Hootsuite, the program that we use. I can schedule a lot of posts. So throughout the day, the Twitter account is very busy. But I'll pose this question to you, and you let me know what you think. Do you prefer, and I wish that's the one little part of the program that we use to stream the show that I don't love, is that they don't have this as an option, a poll. I would love to be able to put up a poll right now. Do you prefer a matchup like 51-45, double overtime against Wake Forest or any team?
I was drinking almost a beer per play.
Or are you a fan of something like 10-3 Clemson, Georgia? Now, you'll say, Swanee, I'm a much bigger fan of Clemson and Wake Forest because Clemson won and they lost that 10-3 game. Forget the wins. Forget wins and losses. Okay? I'm talking about simply which type of game do you prefer? Because my personal belief is that the majority of you are much bigger fans of a matchup like Clemson and Wake Forest. No defense. You all prefer. There is a small portion of you who may think that you're in the majority, but you are in the minority. And you think that 10-3 game is the better of the two ball games.
Okie dokie.
Not me. No, not at all. 803-450-0086. You could text us. Let us know what you think. I mean, I know it's gut-wrenching to watch a team go up and down the field. I know it's painful to watch a guy throw 6 touchdowns against you. But to watch your quarterback throw 5 and win the game, I mean, to me, like I much prefer that. You know, if I think back to like that matchup between Alabama and LSU. That was a 9-6 game, the game of the century or whatever it's just supposed to be. This is going to be like amazing to me. And I know Brent Venables won't like this. Wes Goodwin won't like this. Defensive coordinators of the world will not like this. But I would much prefer to sit there with some action taking place on the field, like a tennis match, up and down, just left and right, than I would a punting showcase. 803-450-0086. Let us know what you think. Big Mix in the house today. He's going large on Clemson. 63-0. The Tigers squashing the Wolfpack. Maybe a little over the top, Big Mick, but hey, I don't judge. I don't judge, man. Mick coming in 1,000,000-0. All right, so the website, put the .com on it, doggone it, ClemsonSportsTalk.com. Our Instagram, our Twitter accounts, man, they have been, blowing up. They have been blowing up, and we're having a lot of fun hanging out with you. Now, the other question du jour, if you will, honestly has to do with the weather situation and the potential hurricane that's already moved South Carolina and South Carolina State up to Thursday night at 7 p.m.
Holy crap, I am freaking out.
Don't freak out about that. Relax, pump the brakes. I mean, I've got a couple of theories on this, and Clemson and NC State still set for 7:30 on Saturday night on ABC. And I have no inside sources on this. I'm just doing this moronic thing called thinking logically about it. With game day in tow, first and foremost, with game day in tow, I would find it incredibly odd that Clemson and NC State would be moved to a different day. Let me preface it. I find it incredibly odd that this game would be moved to a different day. That's number one. Because game day has to take place, and unless they were to take it to Bristol because they're not going to be on the road because they're just moving the Clemson game altogether, then I can't see another situation where you have game day in Tiger Town, but you played the Clemson game on Friday. Look, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but that doesn't make any sense. I'll also say this. Typically, and I haven't checked his schedule, but Kirk Herbstreit works those Thursday night NFL games, right? So you're not going to bump this thing to Thursday because Kirk Herbstreit's on the call. Now, look, just because Herbstreit's on the call doesn't mean he has to be on the call. But I just think when you look at the entire situation at this point, game day, Herbie situation, marquee matchup, at this point, I don't think you're going to see this game be moved off of Saturday. Again, trying to track a hurricane that's bobbing and weaving like Muhammad Ali left and right. I'm not sure we know exactly what it's going to look like Saturday evening just yet, but I am willing to at least believe that ESPN, College Game Day, that everybody involved in this is going to do everything they can to make sure that this game takes place on Saturday night. Could it be earlier Saturday? Maybe, but I don't see it being played on Friday. If you told me game day is going to emanate live from Clemson on Saturday, if you guaranteed me that today, I guarantee it's a Saturday football game. I feel very confident in that. Now, could you push it off later? Maybe so. Big Mick's talking about maybe moving it to Sunday or Monday. Now, later in the week, Big Mick, I might be willing to hear that, forecast. But I can't see it moving up with game day set to be in town on Saturday morning. 803-450-0086. And again, there's nothing tying game day to have to be at Clemson because of this. A huge matchup. One of the things that I think we wondered going into Clemson and Notre Dame in the rain back in 2015, going into this matchup as well, as how does the wind, how does the rain, how does all of that sort of affect, if you will, the game day situation, and the performance of these two teams. Dry weather, perfect track, who's to the advantage, and does it shift significantly in your mind with potentially, downpours taking place in Clemson? Currently looking at the weather for Saturday night, overcast with rain showers at times is what it says. Wind southeast 10 to 15 miles an hour with a chance of rain of 60%. That's, again, Saturday night in Death Valley, the current projection. It looks like most of the wind and rain, according to this, would be coming through on Friday, where winds may top somewhere 20 miles an hour. So, again, I don't know, man. I'm like I said yesterday, I'm no Larry Sprinkle. I don't play a meteorologist on TV. If I did, I'd just say it's a 50-50 chance it rains, man. Either it rains or it doesn't. But all that being said, we are seeing games being moved, including South Carolina and South Carolina State bumping their game up to Thursday. So they're going to get it in ahead of the weather, which, I can't imagine for Shane Beamer and his club what, that's like to all of a sudden, Dabo Swinney has talked a good bit here at the beginning of the season about, the schedule that Clemson's kind of dealt with. And then if you're South Carolina, having to fast forward that thing a little bit here in the past 24 hours. And again, you're preparing for SC State, so you shouldn't have to be like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? But even still, that throws you out of your rhythm. That throws you out of your prep work. It throws you out of everything. And to me, that tends to lead to more substantial issues, if you will. 803-450-0086, because you're just kind of out of sorts. You're a little bit out of sorts. Text line and phone line, again, always available to you. And you know how much we appreciate you guys hanging out with us and having a good time. Lots of great coverage of your Clemson Tigers over on our website right now, including an article and the full video on Nate Wiggins. Wiggins on Saturday, we kind of touched on it, man. I mean, he was toasted several times. And he called it the worst performance of his career. Some of you guys said, yeah, no kidding. How could it have possibly been worse? And I mean that at Clemson. I mean that at, his high school. It's hard to imagine Nate Wiggins having a worse game than the one he had on Saturday, including dropping what would have been an interception in the end zone And on a play where he probably the smart place to knock that ball down, he does end up knocking it down, but it looked inadvertent. And he even talked about the fact that he was kind of frustrated that he, didn't haul that football in. But one of the things that you heard from Nate Wiggins that I think is a positive is that, his teammates continue to support him. And even though he really struggled in the game, that's kind of given him, I think it sort of leveled him off a little bit, quite frankly. And he was asked about why he remains so confident in himself. And he said, I just know what I can do. And I feel like one game doesn't expose who I am. And so from that standpoint, I think for Nate Wiggins, more than anything, what happened on Saturday was an opportunity for growth. I mean, if I go back and think about the great Clemson corners in recent memory, I mean, it's rare that a guy goes in as a freshman and really impacts the game. It's rare that a guy, even as a redshirt freshman, goes in and impacts the game. Like Mackenzie Alexander is one of those few players who, at a very young age, at that position, just was different. And look, Clemson's had some great corners. Trayvon Mullen, A.J. Terrell. I mean, you've seen some really good guys come through the system. Andrew Booth. And I think Booth kind of had some of that too. I mean, in recent memory, to me, it's been Mackenzie and Andrew Booth who truly sort of had that fearlessness that it takes to be on that island. And they had it early on in their career. And so I haven't yet seen Nate Wiggins have that level of comfort in being that guy on the defensive side of the ball for Clemson at cornerback. But even though he's kind of been that oar on the depth chart, and you need everybody to be ready, this hasn't had to be, this hasn't needed to be his moment. Like maybe it was for Mackenzie Alexander, or maybe it was for Andrew Booth. And so now that he's had another week to kind of wrap his mind around the playing time and the opportunities and watch the film. And again, Dabo Swinney talked about, look, as much as it was the play, the scheme, we weren't helping. It wasn't, the scheme wasn't even complimentary of what the Tigers were trying to do. So I kind of lean in with Nate Wiggins and just have this trust in my gut that being beaten up like that on a Saturday is a healthy thing for him because he put a lot of bad on tape. And when you put a lot of bad on tape and then you kind of go through those adverse circumstances and come out on the other side, typically you come out better. Typically you've improved. Now, will that improvement show up this week? You better hope so. If the weather's nice, if it's not too bad for passing the football, because you're going to need Nate Wiggins to play well. 803-450-0086 will come back after this break. Talk about some of the other big matchups going on in the world of college football on Saturday. Stay with us. What is up, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter? Go check out the website, ClemsonSportsTalk.com. Hope everybody's doing well, getting this segment cut. And then we'll get back to it. The one thing I really miss about doing the show at iHeart downtown is standing up and doing the show. I can't stand sitting down. I stood up for years. Make sure you ring the bell, subscribe, do all that. I was on a show the other day, and that's what they kept saying. Ring the bell. You can ring my bell. Ring my bell. 9:20. All righty, here we go. Rolling along on a Tuesday. It is the show that shakes the Southland. Clemson Sports Talk, Lawton Swan. Again, a top 10 showdown. Death Valley, Clemson, NC State. The Tigers looking to tie Florida State for the longest home winning streak in the history of the ACC. Clemson currently with a 36-game winning streak at home, looking to go to 37. If they were to do that, that would tie those Florida State Seminoles who did it from 1992 to 2001. By the way, for Clemson, it is also a chance for them to win their 18th consecutive night game dating back to 2013. And my initial thought on that, like when I heard that, I was like, whoa. Like Ross Taylor generally nails it. Now Ross will tell you he's no Tim Beret, but he knows his stuff now. He's getting there. But Ross put that out, and I thought, what? The Pitt game. Pitt, 43-42. I was like, that stat can't be right. But then I went back to that Pitt game and looked, the start time on that one must have been 3:30. And being in a mid to late fall, it was getting dark sooner. So, yeah, it was under the lights, but it was not a night game. But 36 consecutive home games won for Clemson in Death Valley. By the way, if you don't follow us on Instagram, you should. That graphic is up. We put that up a little bit ago. Again, at Clemson Sports with the underscore on it. Go check that out. 803-450-0086. Still, as we are aware, Clemson and NC State set to kick off at 7:30 on Saturday night. I honestly, with game day there, as I said out of the gates, it is hard for me to imagine them moving this game up. Do I think they could move it back? I think that is a possibility. But moving it up, I don't think so. South Carolina, however, did move their game up. The Gamecocks and SC State will face off on Thursday at 7 o'clock. That game currently not listed on any broadcasting network because of their move. BYU will host Utah State at 8 o'clock on Thursday on ESPN. So the Gamecocks currently, BYU and Utah State, the two matchups that are being played on Thursday, and that BYU-Utah State game was already scheduled to be the Thursday night matchup. So South Carolina moving in on that one. As for some of the other big games, number 7 Kentucky's at number 14 Ole Miss, noon on ESPN this week. And look, I get it. It's not 5 versus 10. But in a league where the accepted great teams are Alabama and Georgia, without really any credence at this point given to Tennessee and Kentucky and other programs who are off to a really good start this year, I mean, this is a legitimate chance for either Kentucky and or Ole Miss to kind of stick their foot into that door, keeping that door open. not letting it slam behind them. That, hey, you're just just another fraud at the top of the polls. Somebody's going to lock in. And if it's a tight ball game, and this is the other circumstance around this, if Ole Miss were to win this game by just a late walk-off field goal, then all of a sudden you might see Kentucky not drop too far. The same could be said going the other direction, right? But you would believe in that scenario, Ole Miss jumps into the top 10, 9, 10-ish, and Kentucky drops back to like 11, 12-ish. And so for the SEC, again, two teams that have improved significantly facing off for a chance for one of those two to step forward. And if it's Kentucky, again, you talk about resumes and opportunity. Kentucky gets a chance to kind of showcase themselves a little bit against a top 15 team in Ole Miss. And when you look back at Georgia and Kent State, it's incredible because if Clemson played Kent State the same way that Georgia played Kent State, 39-22 this past Saturday, that would be the talk. Oh, Clemson, what in the world? How did they? That's kind of what it was last week with La Tech. But I haven't seen a whole lot of what's going on with Georgia. A little bit here, a little bit there. But there seems to be an accepted, okay, teams are going to have a bit of a one-off. I think that's all anybody really wants, quite frankly, is the recognition that, when Clemson doesn't play their best football against Furman or La Tech, and this is what I tried to say because you're watching App State win on the road in College Station. You're watching Georgia Southern win on the road in Lincoln. You're watching Marshall win on the road at South Bend, Indiana. And I'm thinking, be glad you're not one of those teams today. Yeah, Clemson wasn't perfect. Georgia wasn't perfect. But it sure does feel like Clemson took a bigger, sort of a bigger knock based off of how they've played a couple of games that they won versus Georgia in their game with Kent State. But what do I know? Maybe that's my orange shaded glasses and my orange underwear acting up. I have no idea. Let me get my glass of orange Kool-Aid. 803-450-0086. Text line and phone line. Again, didn't get too many games in during that segment. I'll try to do better in the next segment for you. So I would like to say I am sorry that I did not get that in for you. With a quick break, we'll come back with more right here in hour number 1 on the Tuesday edition of the show that shakes the Southland. It is Clemson Sports Talk. All right. How's everybody doing? I think Lowell is going to try to come on the show tomorrow, which is another reason that I want to fire the show up today. So let's see what we got here. Well, 4 years into 5 while I get this crank. Hopefully this won't kick us off of any platform. We'll roll it anyway. Oh.
I thought I'd grow up and I'd settle down. There was 10,000 girls up in Tiger Town, and it was heaven to me. I used to sneak downtown with my fake ID and watch Doug McCormick rock TDs on a Friday night.
That song is called 4 Years into 5. And what's funny about that is I turned 4 years into 7. True story. But I always say I would not have met my wife had I not spent 14 semesters in college. So something to be said for that. Two children in a good life. Those, right in the back. Oh, you can't see them. They're not this small anymore, believe me. I thought, man, the camera angle must have shifted. I thought you could see them in the back, right? I was trying to add a little family feel. You guys are looking at it going, that Swanee, he is such a good guy.
Oh, I get it. You stink.
All right. Let me get these 2 files uploaded into the system. Be tight here. Stop talking. Again, the website, if you've never been, ClemsonSportsTalk.com. Maybe I'll throw that up for you. Let's see if I can get you that. So how's everybody doing? Predictions? Anybody want to give a prediction early in the week? How you feeling about the game? Is the spread moved or the line? Or the over-under, excuse me. I know it had gone from like 6.5 up to 7. 43 points yesterday. Oh, it's dropped to 40 points in a 6.5 spread. So the weather conditions, I guess, kind of slowing things down a little bit in terms of the point score. I mean, obviously the defenses. Now, Clemson's a heavy favorite according to ESPN. Sent using their matchup predictor. So, second, but let me. And into the system. Do I have anything else funny I can play? Let me see. Oh, this was a great call. This was a call many years ago.
I listen to sports talk radio all over the nation, but the way you come across makes me sick. You're going to find yourself not on the radio.
The way you come across makes me sick. You're going to find yourself not on the radio. That was 8 years ago, pal. 8 years ago. That uploaded. I love that. I got that whole call somewhere. That whole call is fantastic.
I listen to sports talk radio all over the nation, but the way you come across makes me sick. You're going to find yourself not on the radio.
When he said, I said, I'm sorry. Oh, goodness. Crack the storm. Hurricanes, man. Not the Miami kind. Those don't scare you or mess your schedule up. These real ones that are a problem. Go, Swanee. You got 4 minutes, man. Go be tight. Go be tight, people. Really going to be tight an hour, too, if I don't hustle. All right, let's see. All right, I think I can start the next segment and be good. Got how long? 4 minutes. Nine 27-22, segment 3. It is the show that shakes the Southland. Clemson Sports Talk, our website. Put the .com on it. Doggone it, that's ClemsonSportsTalk.com. So I was trying to, look through the break at some of the weather situations. I'm kind of up and down on this, and I'll tell you the reason why. when you look at like the spaghetti models, when you look at the path and the track of the Hurricane Ida, is that right? Ida or no, Ian. Hurricane Ian. Ian, Ida, Ira, all the same. Hurricane Ian. When you look at the path, I mean, it to me is not so bad off that it just makes you go, man, it's going to dead hit on Clemson, because it did kind of look like that for a while. It looks like Clemson will be on the outer edges of the storm, which could ultimately be a positive given the matchup coming up with NC State. Seeing the spread drop though a little bit, it was like 43 points yesterday. Today it's dropped to 40, would seem to indicate that the belief is that the weather is going to factor in. Now, defensively, both of these teams are really good, but 40 points in a ball game, that is a slim number for the over-under. Clemson is still favored by 6.5. So, again, if you think Clemson's going to cover 7, in the ball game, and that game's going to finish right on the, on the button, you're talking about a low-scoring affair. So, shortened game, ball kept on the ground. Again, I posed the question earlier, who does that favor? My tendency would be to lean in on Clemson, even though the offensive line for the Tigers has not been a strength as of yet. I think 3 running backs is a big deal. And I think also just being on your home turf is going to allow for more opportunities in the downfield passing game, even in bad conditions, because the fans in a game like that, even when the Hurricane could sort of drown you down a little bit with all the wet and the weather, that environment for Clemson Notre Dame was electric, and I don't think this will be any different. The only thing that makes this weather different, or this environment, I should say, different, in my opinion, is that you're facing NC State. And Wolfpack fans, you won't like it, but the fact is that Clemson fans, because throughout history have kind of become accustomed to beating NC State, will not look at this game the same way they would look at a Notre Dame coming in, even when you've got a number 10, by your name. And so the energy that'll come out, I think, will be less than what you saw against the Fighting Irish back in 2015. The good news is, and maybe the most significant news for Clemson Tiger fans who want to say, yeah, no, Swanee, I'm going to give as much, if not more than I gave that night against Notre Dame, because I just don't like NC State. I will say, the good thing for you is the fact that Clemson lost a year ago, because I think that is also a legitimate reason that Clemson will play some really good football, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Like, I think that in and of itself, the fact that you got beaten double overtime a year ago will just drive the Clemson football team and the fans to another level. But I find it hard to believe that it'll surpass Notre Dame in Death Valley. You guys might be loud. You guys might be proud. I don't think you'll be as loud and or as proud as you were that night against Notre Dame. It's just it's a different. There are certain teams, if that was Texas even though Texas probably hadn't done much more than NC State in recent years. But if that was Texas, LSU, I mean, you could go through the list of teams that you feel like people would pour a little more effort into. I don't think NC State's on that list. I don't even a top 10 NC State team. There will still have to be some convincing for some of the Clemson Tiger faithful out there. Talked about Kentucky and Ole Miss. That's a noon kickoff on ESPN. Also, Brent Venables in number 18, Oklahoma, start at noon on Saturday at TCU, trying to bounce back after their loss to Kansas State. And that puts Oklahoma's college football playoff hopes, etc., in a significant amount of trouble when Venables had them right there on the brink of sort of holding steady, and maybe even had they won that game, maybe they surpassed Clemson this week in the polls. 3:30 on CBS, you got another top 20 matchup in the SEC. Number 2, Alabama's at number 20, Arkansas. Can the Razorbacks, head coach Sam Pittman, can they find a way to win this crucial matchup? And how quick has Arkansas become a player? I mean, it's been a quick turnaround for them. And last season, as I said, a couple of coaching decisions going for 2 here or there that I didn't love. It cost them a game. Also, another top 20 matchup is number 9, Oklahoma State travels to Baylor, 3:30 on Fox, and a top 25 matchup between Wake Forest and Florida State, still scheduled for 3:30 on ABC out of the Atlantic Coast Conference. So, again, that's a quick look at some of the big games. Clemson and NC State still set for 7:30 on ABC. We will update you. Follow us on Twitter at Clemson Sports or on Instagram and our Facebook page as well to stay updated on the situation with the game time. It's currently still set for 7:30. With a break, we'll bounce back and put a bow on hour 1 right after this. Woof, barely got those segments in a minute ago, people. Gotta hustle. Gotta hustle. 3 seconds out. Second out. We don't want to see how the sausage is made. That's how we do it. 7:30. No. Man, y'all aren't very talkative today, though. Sad face emoji. Big Mick, the only person. So, but I guess, Swanee, when you don't show up every day, you know what, Swanee? Show up, and we'll show up for you.
Come after me. I'm a man. I'm 40. I'm not a kid.
Yeah, I can take it. Pop this one in real quick. Back. Last segment we'll do live, and then we'll drop off until tomorrow, okay? And Pat Lowry was hanging out the other day. He was like, Swanee, I like it when you do all that. Gotta keep yourself busy. Keep your brain flowing. Yeah, so a lot of good football games this weekend. Back in the saddle on a Tuesday, a college football Tuesday, as we head towards a weekend of uncertainty. Right now, Clemson is still scheduled for a 7:30 start against NC State. Hurricane Ian going to be moving straight up the state of Florida. I mean, listen, if I didn't know any better, I'd say Ian was returning from a trip to Disney. I mean, he's going to go straight up through the state of Florida, sort of hit the eastern seaboard there in Savannah area, and then kind of move on inland at this point. Probably going to flow a little to the west of Columbia. It looks like the eye of that storm at this point probably go somewhere through like Edgefield, then eventually up into what appears like it might kick back to the right. Again, I don't know enough about projected storm pass, but it looks like at some point it might pass through sort of the Rock Hill, Fort Mill, Charlotte area before then proceeding on into the state of Virginia, and I'm sure breaking up at some point along the way. It looks like it could be at a hurricane or a category 4 strength at some point as it begins to make landfall in Florida. Plenty of cover already on Florida, and then as it comes through the state of Florida, according to the hold up, I gotta do this a little bit more official here. I think this is probably a better way for me to pull this off to really, kind of make it fit. Let me see if I can even find what I'm looking for on my board. I haven't got a chance to color my radio board, so I'm a little disappointed here because I have like my old timey radio news jingle. Here it is. This just into the CST studios. Hurricane Ian is approaching the state of Florida and will be making its way into the state of South Carolina at some time down the road. That old school news jingle, man, that thing's wild. Anyway, it looks to me like this storm will begin to dissipate to a degree as it's going to spend a lot of time on land in Florida, which might give us some level of comfort that there won't be a ton of effect on Clemson's matchup. Now, the Gamecocks, again, have already moved their game up to Thursday. So they bumped their game up a couple of days. I'm just sitting here kind of watching some of these models of where this storm is, where it could potentially go. I would say the biggest factor at this point for Clemson and NC State, from this observer's perspective, is perhaps more about like the situation of how much rain and saturation goes into the ground. And the good news is these stadiums in Death Valley and many others do a really good job of drainage. Like the whole way these stadiums are now built is conducive for, much more so than my front yard and your front yard. It's conducive for staying fairly dry under incredibly torrential, downpours. And so that'll be, I would say, something to kind of just keep an eye on. I mean, I think they'll do a pretty good job with the field if that is something where you're dealing with a couple of days of rain. But again, just taking a look at this hurricane as it gets closer to landfall in Florida, and we certainly, our thoughts and prayers are with everybody that's going to potentially be affected by the winds and the rain and the flooding. But, at this point, in terms of the games coming up this week in the state of South Carolina, I mean, to me, I think this game's going to be on. I think it's going to be the night game. The weather might not be perfect, but I can't see them moving it with game day being there. I think it's going to be played on Saturday. Could they move it up Saturday? Maybe, but I'm wondering, just kind of looking at this path, and again, there's not any real October the 1st, 8 a.m. You know, they've got the eye of the storm south of Augusta. So, I mean, you'd have some rain, but it doesn't look like at that point it's going to be, a hurricane. It looks like it'll just be a tropical storm, which is essentially just at that point, in a lot of respects, over land, some wind and rain. Benny Weathers, ironically, he says, how do you feel about our O-line this week? Benny, I said earlier, man, I think that, if Clemson has to get into, if this has to be a ground game, I don't love the right side of the offensive line, but I do think you're starting to see this left side kind of come into its own. And with 3 solid running backs on a day where if you had to rush the ball 40 times, I like that. I also like DJ being an additional running weapon for Clemson in a scenario where you kind of put him back there and make him the 11th man, give you an extra hat offensively and say, okay, well, we're going to run some zone read. DJ is going to be a guy that keeps the ball a good bit and stop us if you must. I'll tell you this, I like DJ doing that a lot more than I like Devin Leary. So that would be my thoughts on that, Benny. 803-450-0086. Text line, phone line. Hour number 2 coming up. We'll be joined by Mike Yuba as we peek over the fence to see what's going on in the backyard of Gamecock Nation. Stay with us. Brandon, what's up, man? I just saw your message, dude. I will play it in hour 2, but I'm actually about to drop off of the live stream here today. But I'll get to it in hour 2, so you'll hear it on iHeartRadio, man. You'll hear it on iHeartRadio. Thanks, guys. Again, the website, ClemsonSportsTalk.com. Come hang out with us over there as well. Y'all take care. We'll be back live tomorrow around 3:15. Go Tigers.